They say that data is the new oil, and if data is the new oil, well then databases are the new oil refineries. In this video, we're going to look at how you can use Postgres in Python to store your own custom niche dataset. We'll start off by looking at how to install a user-friendly dashboard so that you can view and visualize your data at any time. We'll then look at how you can connect to a Postgres database using Python. And finally, we'll look at how you can insert data there. Special bonus at the end, we can discuss some ideas on how you can start monetizing that data immediately. Okay, so to get started, we're going to need to install a user-friendly dashboard so that we can visualize our data. It's going to be a lot more difficult if we're constantly having to learn new tricks and skills on the terminal. So to make it far easier for you to learn database skills, we're going to focus on visualizing it with a user-friendly dashboard. To do this on a Mac, you can simply input brew install --cask pgm-in4. If you don't have Homebrew installed, I'll link another video down below on how you can do that, because we looked at how to install Python with Homebrew before. Once you've done this, you'll have pgadmin installed. For those of you who are Windows users, you can literally just Google download pgadmin4, and you'll see here the second one, pgadmin download, and you'll be able to download it. You can of course do this for Mac as well, but I find it a lot easier to use Homebrew. Okay, that should be installed now, and once that's installed, you'll be able to open an app on your machine called pgadmin4, and it will look something like this. Okay, whilst that's installing in the background, we're going to go ahead and install an image of Postgres using Docker. For those of you guys who don't have Docker installed already, you can just come to docs.docker.com/desktop, and you can just go ahead and install it for whichever machine you're on, whether it's Mac, Windows or Linux, and you'll see it there. Okay, so once you've got Docker installed, we can go ahead and actually spin up an instance of Postgres on our machine straight away by pulling the Docker image. So we're going to enter in this command here, and if you guys know, all of these videos, I'm always going to be following along from some sort of blog that's on my website. So if you go to johnjoewoodward.com, blogs, Python PostgreSQL, you'll see that this is what we're going to be doing. So you can come ahead here if you want, and you can just copy this and paste it. But I'm going to type it out for this tutorial so that you can understand every single thing that we're doing. Okay, so we're going to start off by saying docker run --name, and all this is saying is start a container, so a new Docker container with this specific name. So we can give it any name we want. So we can say, for example, Postgres YT tutorial for Postgres YouTube tutorial. So that's going to be the name of this container. We then need to define some environment variables. So we're going to say -e, and we're going to say Postgres password equals, and we can just call this password. And then we're going to say -p, and we're going to basically here define the port. So the -p is what desired port you have. Now here, traditionally, Postgres runs on port 5432, but normally what happens is there's something else going on your computer that's used Postgres. So let's say you've installed Postgres before, or you've set up some different container, then that might be taken. So I strongly suggest that you map a different port onto 5432. So you can do something like, for example, 5429, okay? And I'm going to map that to 5432 so that I don't have any conflicts at all. Now here, I'm just going to use the -d to say run this in detached mode, and finally the name of the image that I want. So you can obviously, you guys know, you can just always Google Docker image for whatever. So I'm going to say Docker image for Postgres. I can look at the official image in the docs here, and we can see that installing it is as simple as just saying Postgres. So this is if you want to have some sort of specific tag associated with it, but for us, we're not too fussy. So here, I'm just going to say Postgres. Okay, so that now should be working. So if I run now docker ps, I should see that. So if you look here, we can see we've got Postgres YT tutorial. Okay, so now that we've got that running, we can actually go ahead and start connecting to it. Okay, so the first thing that I'd suggest you guys do is you go ahead and you pull up your pgadmin database. So it's going to look a little bit something like Just get rid of all of these servers and just come back to, let's just close this up. So we can open pgm-info, which you will have stored here. You can see we did it with Homebrew. Okay, so now that we've got this open, what we can actually do is we can come in here and we can right click on servers and we can register a new server. So here we can give it any name. So I'm just going to say the same thing again. So this was the Postgres YT tutorial. Should I use underscores for this one? No, actually we'll keep it the same. Postgres YT tutorial. So this is the same as the Docker image name. You then need to come over to the connection tab. You need the host name. So for us, this is localhost, right? Because we're running this locally on a Docker image. The port that we use, so I think we did 5429. The username by default will always be Postgres. And then we gave it a password of just password. Okay, and now if I click save, this should be able to connect. Okay, and we've got it here, Postgres YT tutorial. Okay, so now that we know this is working, we can spin up a Python file and start actually interacting with this database, creating a table and inserting some data. So if we just go back to the terminal, we can just go into wherever. So if I just go into data storage, so maybe I'll go into cd data storage, and I'll make a new directory called, what was this called again? Postgres YT tutorial. Just go into that, and then we can just open it with cursor, which I am now using a lot more than VS Code, which is a bit crazy. Okay, so now that we have got this, let's just move this to the side and keep our database there so we know what we're working with. So the first thing that we obviously want to do is we want to create a virtual environment. Again, you can look at previous videos on how to set these up on my channel. Just look for virtual environment. So we're just going to do python -m VM. And now in this virtual environment, we want to install a package. So we're going to say pip install. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I need to activate the virtual environment. So we're going to say source vm/bin activate. Now you can see here we've got our virtual environment activated. And now we're just going to say pip install psychopg2. Okay, and this is the Python package that's going to allow us to connect to our database. So we just create a new file called main.py, and we can go ahead and we can import that package there. Okay, so to connect to the database, we're going to need to give it a few environment variables. So we're going to start off by giving it a database name, and we can call that anything we want. So let's say we have a new database just called YT tutorial, and AI has already predicted the rest of the stuff we need. So we need a username. Because we didn't give one, by default it will be Postgres. The password we set was password. The host, as you remember, we used localhost, and the port we did 5429. And so that should now be enough for us to go ahead and connect. So we can do connection equals psychopg2.connect. The database name equals these various variables, and we pass this in and we should be connected. Okay, so once we have done that, we need to actually create a cursor. So we can say cur equals quant.cursor. And all this is going to do is it's going to basically allow us to interact with the database now that we're connected. So what do we want to do? Let's create a simple table. So to create a simple table, let's say that we want to store stock data. We can say cur.execute, and inside here, this execute method, we basically can put any SQL we want. That's the reason why I really like this this package. Is it's super simple. It doesn't have any Pythonic like way of interacting with the database. There's no extra wrappers on it, and so all the SQL statements that you write here, you can take away and write anywhere. You can open up your terminal and interact with it if you want to, but this just means that you're not doubling up your code. So you don't have a load of SQL queries in SQL language and then a load of SQL queries written in some sort of strange Pythonic way. So here we're going to create a table. So traditionally they use triple quotes for this so that you can have line breaks and all that good stuff. Let me just double check why. Okay, so we're going to come here and we're going to use 1, 2, 3. So we're going to use triple line quotes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to come here and we are going to say create table if not exists. Exactly. So actually what we're going to say is create table if not exists, and we're going to call this stocks, and we're going to have an ID serial primary key. So this is effectively going to be like a user ID or like some sort of ID that allows us to locate this, and it's going to basically be individual. And no one else can have this ID. What do we want then? We want like a ticker. So we'll have a ticker and we'll have a price. And for the price, we are going to have a decimal. So that, I mean, the price definitely does not need to be unique. So we're going to do price, decimal, 10 to not null. Okay. And now we've got this, we should be good to go. So now we should be able to start storing stocks in our table. I mean, actually, firstly, we can just test committing this. Okay, so we can do con.commit, cur.close, con.close. Okay, and if we do this and we refresh on this database, we should be able to see this new table created. Okay, so I just come in here and I do python main.py, and straight away there's an error. So the database name does not exist. So we're just going to use the one that's already set up. So if you look here, the error was database YT tutorial does not exist. If we come over here, we haven't actually set that new database up yet. So let's just use the one that's come out of the box. If we run this statement again, and we have a syntax error. Okay, so what went wrong here? Okay. I think I know what this is. So we shouldn't have a comma on the end unless we're having another statement. Okay. All right, let's see if we've got a new table called stock. So that's run now. So if we come into Postgres here, go to schemas, public, tables, we can see now that we've got a table called stocks. Okay, so that's great. So we've now learned how to create a table. So if I right click on this, view edit data, all rows, we should have nothing. But we can see there's an ID, which is we're calling it a PK primary key integer. We've got a ticker and we've got a price. Okay, so immediately we've been able to do this. Let's look now how we can actually insert some data. Okay. So what we want to do down here is we want to go again, cur.execute. Let's just use AI for this. Wow, it's done it straight away. So again, we can insert some SQL. So we can say insert into stocks. And what we want to insert is ticker and price. So why don't we give the primary key? Well, Postgres is going to automatically create this primary key for us. So we don't need to do it. Okay. So we can say the ticker and the price is what we're going to give. And the values are going to be Apple and 100. Okay. So now if we run this, we should have one entry in our database. So I'm going to come over to stocks, right click. I'm going to come over to tables, right click, and I'm going to hit refresh. And then if we run this, we should have one row, and we don't. Okay, that was weird. No idea why that didn't work the first time. So now we can add something in. We can say Apple. We can say that Google stock trades at 105. We run this. And we run this query again. And we see we got Google. Maybe we want to add Microsoft, 110. And we run this file. Run this again. And we've got Microsoft. So you can see how super simply you can start inserting data. Now, obviously, this is just the basics, but you can create any sort of table you want with any sort of data set, and you can actually start monetizing this straight away. So let's now discuss the 3 ways in which you can monetize your custom data set. So the first one and the most simple thing that you can do is you can immediately start selling an API service. So live, as your data's coming in, you could be setting a live API feed. Once you get more and more data, you can start selling historical data. So a lot of companies make money by just purely selling data, and you can do this with whichever niche custom dataset you decide to store. A second way that you can start monetizing this data is you can start seeing if this data gives you an edge in the world of algorithmic trading. Let's say, for example, you have data on footfall on high streets. So you had some sort of access to either people parking in a certain shopping car park and walking down those streets, or some sort of webcam or some sort of security camera footage where you can see how many people and use AI to actually see those people. Then you might be able to find a correlation between that and the performance of certain stocks of shops which are on the high street. And finally, you can actually start training your own AI models, which I think is where the future is. Having niche, custom AI models which are trained on data that only you have access to will give you incredible power in the future, and is very similar to the equivalent of owning all the domain names back in the early 90s and 2000s. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be releasing more content on how you can start monetizing